So this church had to basically close it completely. The pastor decided to close it, shut down, and restart somewhere else, saying that no more missionaries.
We're doing a class right now at course called Global Missions in the 21st Century. And as a part of the key course content for this class, we're doing interviews with leaders from around the world. And we are excited to release these to you and invite you to pull up a chair and listen in to these enriching discussions. Okay, well, I'm here with Ryuta Kimura, who is a pastor, church planter in Tokyo. He planted the Double O Cross Church in Tokyo. Ryuta has also served as a training director with Cities to City Japan. He's been part of the Grace City Church Planting Network, which has maybe 10 or so churches there in Tokyo. There's a lot to share, but Ryuta, I had the privilege of just meeting you and your wife and your church 2 summers ago when my family spent a month in Tokyo. And thanks so much for coming on with us. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really honor to be here and share, whatever is helpful with you.
Yeah, just for a quick reminder for our students or whoever might actually listen to this after we do the class, but this is part of a class on missions in the 21st century. And your life and ministry intersects several major global trends in global missions, one of which being some of the key leaders, mission thinkers, missionaries, missionary practitioners in the world today among the unreached are non-Western. That's a key feature that's different than, say, missions 100 years ago. The mission fields have become the mission force, and you're a part of that missionary force there in Japan, in Tokyo. That's one major trend that intersects with your life and ministry. And another one just being urban church planting and the importance of major global cities. Why plant churches there? Why is that strategic? Why is that important? Also, just the issue of contextualization. And I know you've done a lot of work in that area, thinking through how can we communicate the gospel clearly in a Japanese context? And so anyway, those are some of the themes I hope we can get into today and that you can shed light on. But before we get into those, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your own journey to faith in Christ? Japan is still one of the least reached countries in the world. Japanese people, 160 million, less than 1% of the population are Christian. So what's it been like for you to become a Christian and live as a Christian in Japan?
Yeah, so maybe I start with how I became Christian a little bit. I was born in Japan, Tokyo, very Japanese, never been to really other country, experiencing other culture. I was just pure Japanese, and I was just following a typical journey of society, where you go to university and get a good job, marry hopefully, and happily ever after. In Japan, there's getting into university is a huge thing, and many people just take a university test in order to get into your particular subject that you want to study. In that process, I wanted to study archaeology, but archaeology area, the field is really difficult to get in, especially those universities that specializes in this area. And I failed my test. And usually when you fail, you just retake next year. But my mom just said, no, you're a lazy person. You're going to probably end up, not studying for 1 year until next year. So she basically forced me to go to England. She just picked up random language school in the countryside, North England. And that language school was part of seminary. We were saying a theological school and language school. And of course, she's being Japanese. She has no idea what theology means. She doesn't connect the dots, theology and the Christian, right? So she just said, well, you go there. And this is the only condition that I will pay you for your education. So I said, okay, that's a good deal. So I went there and I ended up in that school and realized I was one of the only non-Christian. among, the environment full of seminary students and Christians. And of course, if I look back, God already had a plan.
Mm.
As I'm surrounded by all this, the Bible series. Some of them are quite mean because I think they assumed that I was also a Christian, right, in that environment. But of course, every night I was out in the pub, get drunk, come back to the dormitory. So they're very judgmental. And of course, I also became judgmental of these Christians who are very, critical and all these things. But here's maybe a little bit of a contextualization aspect that Japanese culture being based on shame and honor. What that means is that Asian culture generally they form their identity corporately, or, unlike the individualistic culture. So the environment that you are surrounded is really important. You are easily affected by the group or environment that you are placed. So that's how a lot of Japanese people become Christians overseas. So I was kind of in the similar situation. I was refusing actually for 2 years. As a Japanese person, I was doing pretty well, rejecting the influence of environment. But I had a good Christian friend, and throughout 2 years of being exposed to Christian ideas, Christian living, I finally, have a really interest towards Christianity. It is a big thing that happened in my life. The turning moment was when one of my best friends from Switzerland, he committed suicide.
Mm.
And he was a Christian by then, but he was very much struggling with his faith. He had a lot of mental issues and drug problems. But every time we got drunk together, he used to share about Jesus, saying, "Why don't you believe in Jesus?" And I just laugh at him and says, "What? Look at us. What's the difference between you and me?" Right? But somehow that conversation stayed with me. So when he passed away, he committed suicide. It's a strange story, but he came to my dream and then just having a similar conversation. And he basically was communicating to me, said, "If you don't believe in God, that I would end up in a similar way because we have exactly the same problem." Although I didn't understand what was going on, and it was dream, but very real, almost like I could feel every moment of that dream. I really made me think about Christianity, about God. So that kind of real search started for me. So again, after I became Christian, I wanted to stay in England because it was kind of comfortable environment because everybody around me was Christian. So when I went back to Japan, first challenge was, of course, the same challenge, right? You are now in a different environment, pressured by other opinions, identity, everybody else's forms, again, according to how they think, the people around you. So being a Christian in Japan probably was one of the hardest was to go against that, to hold my ground and belief of the Bible. And of course, that's also challenging because Japanese churches are small and doesn't have that strong presence in Japan. So it took a while to find a church that can really be a part of community and then strengthened. I had a lot of argument with my mother. I grew up in a single parent family. My parents were divorced when I was young. So she had this strong idea that she made it in her life by herself. So I had a lot of conversation saying, well, God never helped me when I was, going through struggle on all these things. And then, so she didn't really like the idea to depend on God. So maybe there's some of this kind of individualistic idea was also by this time in Japan too. So I think, I was kind of really fighting against this tension between this individualistic idea of who I am, right, in God, which is good message too, but at the same time, how do I live in this society that form their identity corporately?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, I can talk a little bit more about it later, but that was my first experience,
Mm.
and yeah, challenge as a Japanese Christian, Japanese Christian. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometime later, you planted Double O Cross Church in, I believe I'm gonna not pronounce this right, but Kichijoji, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Kichijoji,
Yes.
which is one of Tokyo's most desirable
Mm.
neighborhoods. I've walked around some of those streets, and it's a very affluent part of the city. So, what's the story behind that church plan and why that area? So, connect the dots a little bit for us from you're a Christian, you're
Mm.
maintaining your faith to now I'm become a church planter in one of Tokyo's most prominent neighborhoods.
Yeah. So I was serving at um, quite large charismatic church in Tokyo, and um, like many charismatic big churches, we call it, of course, there was mega church trend. My church, former church, was one of those mega church, and maybe a lot of people today are aware of this challenges and issues of mega church. It's quite hierarchy system. Senior pastors are often the authority of everything. So in that world, I was for a while serving well, being faithful. But there was a moment that just that kind of culture really became toxic, and long story short, I got pushed away from that church.
Mm-hmm.
However, I would not reject every experience of that. It was very city center church, where expats and then rich Japanese people live there, and then that kind of people come. But normal, I wouldn't say normal people, but majority of residents, the people in Tokyo, doesn't live in the center of Tokyo. That's a business area, a district, and more commercial shopping center, and all these things main area. So what I experienced was that people don't live there, and so even the people that attend their church, they travel from outside Tokyo. And so when I was thinking about next church plant, I wanted to do a little bit differently. So that moment, I started really work together with city to city, which city is really focused on, as the name city to city, they really focus on the global cities. But I had a kind of interesting conversation because the guy called Jay Kyle, who will become my mentor eventually, but he was basically telling me to plant the church city center. But I was kind of pushed back to say, well, it's a little bit different structure from Manhattan or New York City, because people live in Manhattan or Brooklyn. But I have to explain that Tokyo structure is very different from New York. So eventually come to agreement that he would see Kichijoji as a still part of big city,
Mm-hmm.
but still located in the neighborhood. So Kichijoji is a town of we call it hub city, or um, subculture city, which a lot of different train line crosses, and it's a center of different culture, mainly anime, manga, second-hand clothing, and cool restaurants and cafes. So on the weekend, everybody wants to come to that city, and then still people live maybe 5 minutes away from that town, or even 2-3 stations away from that town. So it's very trend center as well as residential.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is also might be very funny. When I pushed out from my former church, this former church had a kind of um, unfair rule that they set, and I asked all the workers to sign, is that if you plant a church, I mean, leaving that church and plant a church, you should not plant within a 10 kilometers sphere from their church.
Wow.
Of course, that's illegal to do that, but I had wanted to honor that. And then when I looked at the map from their church, it was exactly a 10-kilometer out. So I said, well, okay, this might be a sign from God. And another aspect was that I always loved this subculture, especially anime manga. It was part of my, upbringing, and yeah, I felt really personality-wise, style-wise, were really fitting with us, and yeah, so that's one of the main reasons that felt well, we want to reach the community that where people live, as well as working with the culture and the subculture of that particular town. Another aspect of Kichijoji is that there is a 30 universities within a 15-minute train ride from that town. So, which is crazy big university
Mm.
outreach potential. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so you have university students nearby within a couple train stops. And then you have a trendy part of town where they live, work, play, all kind of in
Yeah.
that area. Um, Talk us through how you thought about issues of how to contextualize for that particular area
Mm.
and subculture. I mean, we could talk about contextualizing for Japanese culture sort of at large, but you had to
Mhm.
do that even more particular for where you were trying to plant. How did you think through
Mm.
those issues?
Yeah. So first, I used to think of contextualization or more this way, uh, using a language or maybe theme that they would like to hear or they would like to, they are familiar with. And yes, there's a certain one aspect of that with a work of contextualization. But what City City really helped me, it was to understand really what biblical contextualization is one aspect is yes, going into the culture, their world, but also being a countercultural. But in order to do that, we need to have a gospel lens. We often say is that biblical worldview, which of course we believe that the kingdom of God is the perfect holistic culture, balancing and yeah. So unless we understand that what the gospel or kingdom lens, it's very first of all hard to critique certain areas of a culture
Hmm.
and also affirm certain aspect of culture. So that's what first I needed to learn. Of course, I'm still learning as I grow in the gospel and then gospel lens and gospel uh, theology. I would say. Um, and one of the probably most important thing that I learned was the concept of idolatry. Idolatry is not just talking about the statue of gods or anything like that, but more spiritual level of idea that everybody has this thing. Everybody makes certain things ultimate in place of God. So, another word, counterfeit, fake gods.
Hmm.
Whatever is that they're culturally they're relying on. So one of them in Japanese culture was to rely on what other people think. It's a corporate opinion
Hmm.
that is so important to Japanese people, right? So the thing about Kichijoji was that Kichijoji had these different subcultures. So another way, there's different groups or a different community forming. So each community has this idolatry that they highlight certain thing that says this is important. You need to hang on to this value. So in order to get into that kind of community, we had to first understand what the idols are.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so of course it's different from person to person. There's a personal idolatry, but also as well as corporate group idolatry. And in Kichijoji, that was formed by anime, manga, all these values. I don't know if I can go in a little bit deeper. For example, nowadays there's a lot of theme among manga and anime. Is this a story narrative that this main character dies in the first episode of the story, okay, by car accident, but he or she will be transformed into another world and restart their life. And every manga anime story has this pattern, same narrative. So that tells me what is their longing is that they are not happy with this current life. And they're thinking if they can restart their life, there will be probably it will be better life. There will be hero, even though you are loser on this real life, right? They wish to restart, and so their thinking is that if environment is different, I can make it. I can be a hero. I can be more beautiful. I can be more right. Somebody important. So through church planting, of course, we have to, in a sense, speak into that using the gospel. And yes, gospel has like good news. Yes, you can restart your life, right? You will be born again.
Yeah. Literally
However,
die. You will die.
You will die. Yeah, you can die once, but you can resurrect, not into the new world, but so again, there's a countercultural aspect. Well, you will not escape your reality, but you have a strength to live through. So again, that is using a narrative that they are living and contextualized. So that's the one thing that I really had to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, while I was there, I did not watch any anime or manga, and so it's still very, very foreign to me. I've never really watched it at all, so that was a whole part of the experience I just didn't wade into. But it's interesting that it's both, from what I hear you saying, it's both reflective of the culture, but it also is shaping the culture too. So it's both a product of and a formative influence of the culture, and understanding both of those allows you to enter in with the gospel to critique and then offer them a better narrative, as it were.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Tim Keller puts it this way: we have to rewrite their story, ending with Jesus being a happy ending. So that's a simple way to put it. But of course, you have to you have to understand their narrative. That's a probably big challenge. Yes.
Yeah. Well, how has it gone with Double O Church? Tell us what's been some of your greatest joys and things you celebrate that God has done through this ministry. What are challenges that you faced along the way? You tell us a little bit more of how it's gone working this out in Kichijoji.
Yeah. So one of the joy is to apply gospel in this way of contextualization and then rediscovering how gospel changes truly people's heart and seeing that and directly, through personal story reshaped by gospel and then, come to realization. So that's one of the biggest joy because one of the things that I really struggling in especially my former church or maybe former like a charismatic world is this try harder idea and the message, right? And then it was not really helping Japanese people because Japanese people already try hard. They are hardworking people. They're very morally hardworking people, right? And if you just place them into new religious moral environment and tell them to try harder, they really try hard. But what happens is that they really burn out. So one of the joy that we saw through this really gospel-centered way of approach is that people really find the rest in their soul. Some of them just being long Christian came to our church, just sat there in the service, crying their eyes, just rediscovering the gospel in a new way. And so refreshing way. And of course, the non-Christians comes to and going through this big, massive change of, well, I thought religion, and Christianity is just a religion, but it's entirely something different, from what they used to think about, the image of Christianity or even Buddhism or whatever. The Christianity offers very unique idea. So it's fun to watch that kind of realization, right? People going through realization. Challenges is that it takes really time. Because again, Japanese aspect is really, they are shaped by corporately. So it takes time to create a environment that the people trust, the people place themselves right in that community, and it slowly changing. And that takes a lot of patience. And sometimes Japanese just leave the church without saying anything, because again, they don't want to offend a group. So they're often not honest. They don't share their struggles or even questions that they have about life. One day they come to me and says, "Hey, this is my last Sunday." I say, "Oh, why?" And then, well, the problem started 2 years ago. And my reply was like, "Why didn't you tell me?" So again, that's a gospel issue, right? If gospel doesn't help them form the courage to share honestly, it's difficult. So yeah, so those are maybe some of the frustrations. Double Cross is now 12th year, and I believed we could form that. God helped us form that kind of strong enough community that more and more people coming in and finding rest and peace in that community. So that's I think another aspect is because Japanese, again, the culture is formed by corporately. If you create such an environment, strong environment, that the ministry and influence accelerate, and it gets easier and quicker to evangelize. And but I guess first 10 years is always difficult because it's slow to form such a community.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think through the individualistic culture versus collectivist, group-oriented culture as it relates to the formation of identity. Now, I do think in the West, in America, we talk about expressive individualism and hyper-individualism, those things, but we're still formed by our context and by what other people think too. So it's not, nobody completely forms themselves, even if they want to. But it is different from a group-oriented and culture. So it seems like the disadvantage is the broader culture, the broader group is very much forming them in a way that makes them more resistant to Christ. But if they're able to enter into the church community, and as you say, it's formed in a grace-filled, grace and truth and gospel-centric way, the fact that you created such a community is even more perhaps powerfully formative than in the Western context. Perhaps does that sound right to you?
That's a really good way to put. So that's one of good side, right? The number, there's a strength in number. You can form very healthy community. But flip side of that, there's a lot of cults in Japan. So again, if the environment, the group that you are forming, communities you are forming become toxic, that's also is a dangerous thing, because I think challenge with Japanese again, they try to find a comfort and peace in the community, and they stop thinking along the way, and they shift their responsibility and give it to the leader. They blame shift. So that's another side of that we have to constantly battle against and disciple them. So often Japanese people become Christian overseas, but many times they are not discipled well in that way to form strong individual faith. So when they come back, they lose faith because they are put into all the environment. So I think the Bible speaks of both, right? Yes, you have to form unity as a part of Christ's body, but each part is unique. And so we need to have that individual confidence that God loves me personally, and I don't need to influence to be influenced by wrong ideas. So I think there's a tension that we need to form.
Yeah.
And in a sense, Japanese people are exposed to individualistic culture too through social media.
Right.
So here the challenge is when you go into the school, company, or this society as a Christian, you are pressured by corporate pressure, the collective value. But then when you are at home, when you open your Instagram, bombarded with this individualistic idea that you need to prove yourself out there in the world. Yeah, so we're trying to navigate through the gospel, because
Yeah.
gospel can speak into both
Yeah. Right.
challenges. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just connecting that with a key theme that we've been talking about and the seminary students have been learning from Herman Bavinck, who's really roots this organic unity and diversity of all creation and of humanity and of the church within the triune being. God in himself is a unity
Yes.
and a diversity and unity, a unity and diversity. He's three in one.
Yeah.
Um, and as the ultimate archetype, then the rest of creation, including us made in his image, we are united as a human family. We're reunited and reconstituted as a human family under Christ, but yet our diversity, our individuality is preserved. So it's not the group over the individual or the individual over the group. It's really neither of those. It's as you said, it's the prime New Testament metaphor is a body, and it's an
Yes.
organic whole. Yet we're not all the same, and that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. Um,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting to
True.
hear both streams coming in modern Japanese culture. The
Mm,
individualism through social media and Western
mm,
values, and the more ancient group oriented
yeah.
social values.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So you mentioned about America. I think it's true. America also has this collective pressure, right? Like politically. So it's not really just only matter of individualistic culture or the collective culture. It's more about to do with, I would say, another word I would use is shame.
Mm.
How do you feel shame? Because every culture has that the concept of shame differently. Maybe I'm in America, it's more individual sense of if I uh, fail to prove myself, it's a shameful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
while Japanese people think if I not accepted by this group, then I'm
Mm-hmm.
shameful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we have to work with whatever the shame we feel. Yeah.
Yeah, honor shame, yeah, is here in the West too. It's interesting that, the most popular social media and the first major platform was called Facebook. Your face,
Yes. Yes. Face. Yeah.
in Asian culture, face and face saving
Yeah.
and losing
Yeah.
face is a major thing, and it's just really kind of
Yes.
ironic that it was called Facebook, and then
Yeah.
obviously people are putting forward their best face. So
That's
anyway,
a
we
good
could we
point.
could look at the honor shame dynamics of what's more often considered a guilt innocence culture. But so anyway, both are involved in all, and
Yeah.
I think in all cultures, but maybe they just get expressed or influenced in
Mm.
different ways. Um, well, talk to us a little bit about vision for church planting beyond just Double Ocho. You're part of a network city to city, and there's multiple
Yeah.
churches there in Tokyo, as well as a broader church Grace City, or is that right?
Mm.
Grace City network in Japan. Yeah, cast a little vision for us about what y'all hope to see in the future in terms of church planting in Japan.
Yeah. Yeah. So City. So Grace Church Planting Network was the first network we formed in Tokyo, but eventually that group um, um, we decided to drop the name and we kind of move um, uh, run the organization or network as a city to city network. So the
Okay.
vision just carried through city. City really vision is to work together with all sorts of different cultures and then churches and denominations. And we often use this idea called gospel ecosystem, which maybe I can put it this way: this church is one church is just maybe one tree in a big forest, and that one tree cannot do much. Of course,
Mhm.
they can produce, CO2 or how to say oxygen or whatever, contribute uh, something into the bigger picture, but it's just one tree. So we need to work with a whole ecosystem of that's partnering with each other and supporting each other. So that's what we would like to see in a city. So Tim Keller also talked about this a tipping point of each city. That when he started his church, the New York, the population of Christians in New York was 3% or something like that. But when they reached like a 5%, there's something started change in the air. More influence, more partnership happening, and more Christian organizations working together, supporting churches, as well as local government or even schools. They started to kind of
Mhm.
work together in that way. So that created kind of a bigger influence ecosystem to change the city entirely slowly. So that's the probably main goal. So, and we believe one of the best way to do is to keep planting more churches, working together across denominations. And so we try to intentionally um, agree on that kind of vision as well as gospel centeredness. So in Japan, uh, there's a big problem of um, denomination being divided. They just avoid each other. They are just critical of each other for last 30 years. And only maybe 10 years ago, slowly started to change that kind of wall between denominations.
Mhm.
And one reason is this, of course, the network or uh, group like City City coming in and really pushing this idea of, hey, we need each other, especially in Japan, right? The majority of pastors in Japan, or the evangelical churches in Japan, their average age is 70 years old.
Mhm.
And then we are losing maybe probably 4,000 churches next 5 to 10 years. That is half of our churches that we have today.
Mhm.
Many of them are um, shepherdless churches.
Mhm.
Um, it's just desperate situation, and
So
no longer,
when
yeah,
you said losing 4,000 churches, that does that mean because even the members are aging out? They're just
yes,
older members.
yeah, yeah. That's a main reason,
Mhm.
and we don't have a new generation of pastors coming in. It's a really critical moment, and so it's just there's no other choice than just keep planting a church and pushing that, and yeah, so yeah, we feel as a city, it's church planting is one of the most crucial
Mhm.
um, work that we need to do. Um, but again, we need to contextualize. So, for example, in double cross, we reach probably the size of 150. We have to run two services in a small venue. And then venue is one of the challenges in cities like Tokyo. There's no big
Mhm.
space, and if you want to go bigger, you have to pay crazy expensive amount of money. So one strategy is to, okay, instead of going bigger in size, how about reproducing similar size church plant, but intentionally different style, different right planting a church in a different context that work with effective contextualization. So we decided to plant a church last year in the same town, but in the other side of town, has
Mhm.
a more university vibe, more trendy. And
Mhm.
so we're intentionally trying to do very different style of worship service. And Double Cross is bilingual church, but this church is only in Japanese. So we're trying to work out, and we'd love to see another churches being planted in different city, not only just through Double Cross, but churches that around us trying to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of us planting church directly, why not we share the resources and help them their church plant?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a kind of brief idea of what we are trying to do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Um, so, you know, I think I've shared with you before. My wife and I, we lived in China for a number of years, and then since COVID, China, well, during COVID, China was completely shut down, and a lot of missionaries had to leave, and after they left, they were not able to go back, and so a lot of, I mean, and China had a lot of missionaries, a lot of Western missionaries, a lot of missionaries from all over, Latin American, African, Korean missionaries. So a lot of missionaries had to leave China and couldn't get back, and then for a period of 2, 3, 4 years, they were kind of in limbo, wondering, should we just wait until we can go back, or should we completely relocate and go to some new context. When I was there 2 summers ago, I was really kind of shocked at how many, particularly Western, but also Korean missionary, were coming, just flooding into Tokyo. It
Yes.
seemed like every week there was a new short-term missions team coming and wanting to partner. Okay, that's good. We've learned that we should partner with the local church and wherever we're going. But there's so few local churches in Tokyo, and it just felt like a flood of missionaries coming in, trying to partner with a
Yes.
very small number of Japanese pastors, or even ones that could
Yes.
speak English, even fewer. And so I was just one, shocked by that. Two, kind of concerned, honestly. Like how can a missionary force that's had to divert, you know, from energies from China, and many of them, they love Asia, so they want to relocate to Japan, and still, in other words, if you could speak to that audience to say, here's how you could be helpful, here's what you need to
Yes.
know, here's what you really need to understand about Japan, about the church in Japan, about Christian leaders in Japan, about church indigenous, what I consider, what you guys have is the indigenous church
Yes.
planting movement. I mean, the Westerners aren't telling, y'all are leading this, and you are very apt and capable leaders. What would you want to say to, yeah, particularly Western missionaries coming? What do they need to know? And how could they actually, come alongside and be co-laborers, be partners, be helpful, as opposed to
Yeah.
just causing a bunch of activity and maybe not all that helpful?
Yes. Yeah, it's a kind of big question because that's the probably most recent trend and the challenges that brought to our context in Japan. And I think it's not just the challenges of missionaries coming into Japan, but how we work together, the Japanese pastors work together. And there's a good example of churches that really, the missionary helped to grow that church. And then, bad examples too. Good example to start with is the one church in Yokohama, was existing for a long time, only Japanese church, only Japanese speaking church. But then in that town, um, one a company called Rakuten, it's a big company in Japan, they built an office and started hire a lot of Indian people uh, as a programmer and all these things. And then many of them were Christians too. So this lot of Indian Christian people started coming to this church. So this church quickly adapted and started. I'm not sure who it was, bilingual church or English service. Um, they started this, adapted, decided to work together.
Mm,
Then these Indian people started bring a lot of Japanese friends.
mm,
So as a result, church grew, and of course, Japanese church grew, and then also the Indian community grew, and that's I think a very good example of
mm,
working together, and then even local pastor understanding the environment change and adapting a church. Although they've been running a Japanese church for a long time, but there's also a bad example is that one church nearby us, they're a small church, maybe 30 people. And then suddenly missionaries started to come and basically dominate the whole congregation. And then usually Japanese people are very shy, and if they are not used to speaking in English, they feel that, oh, this is not really my environment.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll just one by one start leaving the church. So this church had to basically close it completely. The pastor decided to close it, shut down, and restart somewhere else, saying that no more missionaries, please. So I was like, okay. So when I heard that, I had to really be aware that, okay, this ratio of Japanese and then foreigners in Westerners, or this ratio, I had to really be careful. So intentionally, we had to do things differently. For example, when we start sing a worship song, let's start with a Japanese first, so that we give the impression that this is a Japanese church. I mean, we are trying to reach to Japanese, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to ask the missionaries to say, first thing that they say is Japanese word when people come to church. So those are the challenges, but also I think there's a strength in having an international church in the international environment, because there's a lot of Japanese people that loves to speak English. And I personally think Japanese are so, in a sense, closed-minded, because it's a kind of land that's separated from mainland of Asia. They form their own culture and almost pride. They need to be exposed to other cultures. And then, biblically, what is a real church? Real church is every nation, every tribe,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I don't like when Japanese people coming to say and then looking at all these different nationalities, and then often they comment, "Oh, this is not really Japanese church," and I have to challenge that. What does that mean to be
Mm-hmm.
biblically Japanese church? I'll say, well, Japanese church can be also international, because biblically, there's every nation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the tension that we need to hold in that way, to be gospel centered, means to work together with every culture, as well as helping Japanese to be confident of their identity as a tribe, if you want to call it that way, and affirming their good side of the culture, as well as, yeah, being countercultural and then try to bring them into the gospel. Um, so we need a missionaries. Otherwise, we will keep losing the churches, because, as I said, it's just everybody's getting old. We need a new church plant. So, yeah, I would say to missionaries that come with a confidence, because we need more help, but also in the mind to plant the churches and intentionally reach out to, yeah, Japanese groups that, of course, I think easier to connect with English speaking or Japanese people who are interested in speaking English. But if you have ability to learn the language and speak language, why not keep reaching to, yeah, indigenous, really Japanese people?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, again, there can be a different ways to work together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to say this. Oh, this is one way, or certain advice that maybe, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
true to its being a global. I mean, Tokyo's 30 million people, and so the
yeah,
whole world can be found. I mean, it's predominantly Japanese, but still, there's people from everywhere there.
yeah,
A lot of them are Christians coming to work there, or study there. Christian students from
yes,
around the world, and they need a church home too. And English right now is kind of the lingua franca. I mean, it's the global language at the moment, and so that provides a home for Christians from, Latin America or wherever. Uh,
yeah,
but contextuals, so, to have a congregation that is multi-ethnic and perhaps multilingual, um,
mm,
that's seems like it should have some place, right, in a global city, in any global
yes,
city.
yeah,
But
yeah,
if it's dominated by English language, which also carries with it English culture,
mm,
which carries with it a lot of American influence in
mm,
worship songs and how you
yeah,
theologize. That's going to have some drawbacks too,
yeah,
and create some
yeah,
distance with Japanese people. So it sounds like it's going to take a variety of approaches
mm,
because the
yeah.
city has a variety of people.
Yeah, maybe I can put it this way. It's no longer just Japanese culture, American culture, or European culture. Culture is now globalized. So Tim can put it this way: there's a more similarity between New York and Tokyo than New York and Texas. In a sense of subculture is connecting cities.
Right.
So, like for example, anime, manga. There were so many fans of anime and manga in France and then in America, and then Japanese people share that culture. So again, if we can form not just a culture geographically, but in this it's the subculture way,
Right.
I think there's a ways to reach really effectively into certain subculture of Japan and certain groups here.
Mm.
So uh, I connect well with these people who are interested, have the same interest than Japanese people in the countryside that don't have any interest. And here's an interesting thing: it's a lot of foreigners are coming into Japan. They are the one that are really interested in Japanese culture, and they are trying to preserve some of the very traditional, good Japanese culture too. So again, that's I feel is an interesting aspect that you know Japanese are losing their own cultural aspect, but while people are from outside, they love it and try to preserve it. So we need to work together with these people too. Yeah,
Yeah. It's complex, is it not? Yeah.
yeah, it is
It
complex.
yeah, it seems to me, and I've been, an advocate for, I don't know, going on 20 years probably now, that missionaries need pretty high level of training, both biblically, theologically, uh, and then missiologically and cross culturally. Like to enter into that context and to be able to think in a gospel centric kingdom minded way across multiple cultures and subcultures in one environment is no easy task.
No,
And
no,
there's
it's not easy.
complexities uh, that the untrained eye can't see, and the
Yeah,
untrained mind can't really process. So then, how do we have a biblically faithful yet contextually appropriate and powerful, response to this environment? Is takes time. It takes wisdom. It
yes,
takes a lot.
yeah,
So if we ever have the privilege of sending y'all a missionary to help with what
yeah,
you're doing
please, yeah,
there, I hope it will be one who's trained well enough that they can have the intellectual and theological
yeah,
tools necessary
yeah,
to be helpful there.
yeah.
Well, just in closing, what would you say, just personally, what sustains your faith and perseverance as you work in a very challenging environment?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe one gospel lens that I really learned through gospel centrality is this idea that Jesus finished his work. Um, our gospel story that we are in, it's all perfected, right? That it's all stories written, and we will be okay in heaven, when Jesus comes back. Um, so in that way, some of the frustration that I go through as a minister or a pastor, I have to had to learn to take it easy. That it's not up to me ultimately. It's gospel story is finished, completed, but slowly unfolding, right, for us in this tension of already but not yet. So I had to enjoy that process of this tension. It's almost like reading a novel, but it's going to be a good end.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a one church member that she couldn't stand this unknown ness of story. So she always read the end of the novel, the end of the chapter first, then she starts reading from the beginning, so that she can enjoy and the process of it. And I think there's
Not
a
worry about where it's ending. Yeah.
yeah. So I can't do that. I need a thrill, But it's one sense that's what the Christian privilege is. That no matter what, your mission will be perfected in heaven, and there will be a perfect church in heaven. perfect community, perfect Japanese, culture, beside all other culture. Yeah, so I had to settle on that, and whatever I do, it's enough for God, and yeah, and that gives me this sense of peace as well as at the same time a sense of urgency because we need to work and we need to, yeah. So that's the kind of perspective that I always need to hold, no matter what the side of church or how slow it is, doesn't matter. God is beyond time and space and matter, so He knows what He's doing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my hope.
Amen. Well, I want to close in prayer, but before I do, just want to again thank you for spending time with me and sharing this with me and through this video with our students and perhaps others who might watch or listen to this on a podcast. But it's last maybe 3 years or so when we first got on a Zoom call like this and spending time personally with you in Tokyo and
Yeah,
tonight. It's just been a pleasure. Been
yeah, thank
praying
you.
for you for quite a while now, and it's good to see you and hear your voice and hear you that you're doing well in the Lord. So, thank you for being with me today.
Yeah, thank you also for this opportunity to share, and I pray that more missionaries comes to Japan.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Christ Our Redeemer Seminary podcast, we would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment, leave a review, and then share it with others. That would really help more people find and engage with this content. Thanks for listening. God bless you.